Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. We're going to continue with our fables. The next one is the hares and the frogs. The hares once gathered together and lamented the unhappiness of their lot, exposed as they were to dangers on all sides, and lacking the strength and the courage to hold their own. Men, dogs, birds, and beasts of prey were all their enemies, and killed and devoured them daily, and sooner than endure such persecution any longer, they, one and all, determined to end their miserable lives. Thus, resolved and desperate, they rushed in a body towards a neighbouring pool, intending to drown themselves. On the bank were sitting a number of frogs, who, when they heard the noise of the hares as they ran, with one accord leaped into the water they did, and hid themselves in the depths. Then one of the older hares, who was wiser than the rest, cried out to his companions, "Stop, my friends! Take heart! Don't let us destroy ourselves after all. See, here are creatures who are afraid of us, and who must, therefore, be still more timid than ourselves." And that's that fable. What it's basically saying there is that the hares were going to drown themselves. The frogs got scared, jumped into the water. The wise old hare saw that the frogs were scared of the hares, and that made him realise that actually they weren't the most timid upon earth. The fox and the stork. A fox invited a stork to dinner, at which the only fare provided was a large flat dish of soup. The fox lapped it up with great relish, but the stork, with a long bill, tried in vain to partake of the savoury broth. Her evident distress caused the sly fox much amusement, but not long after the stork invited him in turn, and set before him a pitcher with a long and narrow neck, into which she could get her bill with ease. Thus, while she enjoyed her dinner, the fox sat by hungry and helpless, for it was impossible for him to reach the tempting contents of the vessel. And that's more about a lesson of being kind, I suppose. Obviously, understanding other people's needs are different to our own. The wolf in sheep's clothing. A wolf resolved to disguise himself in order that he might prey upon a flock of sheep without fear of detection. So he clothed himself in a sheepskin and slipped among the sheep when they were out at pasture. He completely deceived the shepherd, and when the flock was penned for the night, he was shut in with the rest. But that very night, as it happened, the shepherd, requiring a supply of mutton for the table, laid hands on the wolf in mistake for a sheep, and killed him with a knife on the spot. Well, I think that's a lesson for the for the wolf more than anybody else, but yeah, interesting. If you know what the lesson is to that, then do please share what you think it might be. The stag in the ox stall. A stag, chased from his lair by the hounds, took refuge in a farmyard, and, entering a stable where a number of oxen were stalled, thrust himself under a pile of hay in a vacant stall, where he lay, concealed, all but the tips of his horns. Presently one of the oxen said to him, "What has induced you to come in here? Aren't you aware of the risk you are running of being captured by the herdsman?" To which he replied, "Pray let me stay for the present. When night comes, I shall easily escape under cover of the dark." In the course of the afternoon, more than one of the farmhands came in to attend to the wants of the cattle, but not one of them noticed the presence of the stag, who, accordingly, began to congratulate himself on his escape, and to express his gratitude to the oxen. "We wish you well," said the one who had spoken before, "but you are not out of danger yet. If the master comes, you will be certainly found out, for nothing ever escapes his keen eyes." Presently, sure enough, in he came, and made a great to-do about the way the oxen were kept. "The beasts are starving," he cried. "Here, give them more hay, and put plenty of litter under them." As he spoke, he seized an armful himself from the pile where the stag lay, concealed, and at once detected him. Calling his men, he had him seized at once, and killed him for the table. Interesting. I'm not sure what the lesson in that would be, but the milkmaid and a pail. A farmer's daughter had been out to milk the cows, and was returned to the dairy carrying her pail of milk upon her head. As she walked along, she fell a musing after this fashion: "This milk in this pail will provide me with cream, which I will make into butter, and take to market to sell. With the money I will buy a number of eggs, and these, when hatched, will produce chickens, and by I shall have quite a large poultry yard. Then I shall sell some of my fowls, and with the money which they will bring in, I will buy myself a new gown, which I shall wear when I go to the fair, and all the young fellows will admire it, and come and make love to me, but I shall toss my head, and have nothing to say to them." Forgetting all about the pail, and suiting the action to the word, she tossed her head. Down went the pail, all the milk was spilled, and her fine castles in the air vanished in a moment. I was wondering where that was going, then I realised. It's interesting. It's a very simple story, but do not count your chickens before they are hatched, which is quite funny, really, considering what the story was. The dolphins, the whales, and the sprat. The dolphins quarrelled with the whales, and before very long they began fighting with one another. The battle was very fierce, and had lasted some time without any sign of coming to an end, when a sprat thought that perhaps he could stop it. So he stepped in and tried to persuade them to give up fighting and make friends. But one of the dolphins said to him contemptuously, "We would rather go on fighting until we're all killed than be reconciled by a sprat like you." Interesting tale. The fox and the monkey. A fox and a monkey were on the road together, and fell into a dispute as to which of the two was better born. They kept it up for some time, till they came to a place where the road passed through a cemetery full of monuments, when the monkey stopped and looked about him and gave a great sigh. "Why do you sigh?" said the fox. The monkey pointed to the tombs and replied, "All these monuments that you see here were put up in honour of my forefathers, who in their day were eminent men." The fox was speechless for a moment, but quickly recovering, he said, "Oh, don't stop at any lie, sir. You're quite safe. I'm sure none of your ancestors will rise up and expose you. The lesson is, boasters brag most when they cannot be detected. And that's the next part of the fables. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And many blessings.